Thanks for staying with us on the show. Now, funny how the president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, was in Saudi Arabia trying to broker some deal with the government and discuss trade and investment cooperation. But at the same time, Saudi Arabia authorities cancelled the visa of all the 264 passengers airlifted by Nigeria's major carrier, Air Peace, on arrival at the country from Kano State. Now, some say it is some sort of aerospace policy and that it definitely has something fishy involved. Now, even when the Nigerian Embassy in Saudi Arabia intervened, the SA airline still insisted that 177 of the 264 be sent back without proof that anything was actually out of place, leaving 87 persons. Now, obviously, due procedure was followed according to the Nigerian authorities. At this point, we're yet to get a response from Saudi Arabia to know whether a mistake was made or protocol was broken. But that said, we will now go into the conversation with our guests. Joining us first is Wole Shadare, Aviation Editor, New Telegraph newspaper, Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Shadare, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure to always be here.
It's a pleasure to have you join us as well. We also have Keshi, a former diplomat in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Keshi, for joining us. All right, very shortly we will be joined by Mr. Keshi. But Mr. Shadare, let's go straight to the conversation. I think I'm going to start off by asking, what exactly are the potential diplomatic implications of Saudi Arabia's actions?
Thank you very much. This matter has been on for close to 2 days now, and a lot of Nigerians woke up with the shock that 264 Nigerians were to be deported before the Nigeria High Commission in Saudi intervened. But we must get something very clear. The issuance of visa does not guarantee, is not automatic guarantee that one can actually visit a country. It is good that before you visit a country, you must be issued a visa. It's one of the requirements for visiting a country. But we've seen so many countries with different type of visa policies. From what we are seeing, I don't think the Saudi authority are to blame in this, with what is happening, because we have different types of visas. And if you're visiting the United States, for instance, you have about 3 or 4 types of visa. You can't use journalist visa to go for tourism. Definitely you will be stopped. And from what has been happening, from what we are hearing, Saudi they have about 3 types of visas. The one for Umrah, the one for tourism, and one other visa. You cannot use one visa to say you want to go and do. If you issue the tourism visa, it will be inappropriate to do business with that visa. You just have to go for your Umrah of religion purposes. A situation where you use a tourism visa for Umrah, definitely you will return back. The same thing applies to the type of visa issue. We have the I visa, which is for journalists who want to go and cover events in the United States. We also have the B1, B2 visas for those who want to go for tourism or who want to go and visit family and friends. So you can't use the family visa to go and visit families in the United States. You will be stopped. At the point of entry, you are always asked, what are you in the country for? And if you are parading journalist visa and you tell the immigration officer that you are going there for tourism, definitely you will be deported. So in the case of Saudi, in this matter that just happened, the federal government has moved in to intervene or to investigate what must have happened. We must be very careful. We have to respect each country's law. In as much I have not concluded that those visas were fake or those visas were not appropriate. We need to wait for investigation to unravel all of this. Every country has its own immigration law. And if you're not coming to any country for the purpose of which you claim you are in that country, definitely you will be deported. Air Peace found itself in this embargo because I felt, or a lot of people felt, this with due diligence to ensure that the type of passengers they are lifting. You just don't. Yeah.
All right.
And if Airpeace had been more diligent, perhaps in this situation.
Okay, Mr. Shadare, we lost your audio there for a minute, but it's back now, thankfully. So you mentioned some different kinds of visas and that it is important that different countries respect the aviation laws of other countries. But I think my next question is going to be how
immigration
aware
law.
Immigration laws. Apologies for that. Now, how aware would you say that the Nigerian authority is about these things you just mentioned? Because as at the last time that we're following this development, we did find out that the Nigerian authority and the Nigerian Embassy in Saudi Arabia tried to intervene and tried to find out what the issue was. So if they're trying to find out, it means that they were oblivious of this that you just mentioned. So would you say that we're well aware of this?
No. They are not oblivious of what has happened, but in every problem, there must be a way of intervening. Um, all the passengers were going to be deported before the Nigerian Embassy or High Commission in Jeddah intervened. I think what they did was to screen the people that maybe their cases are not that bad, that maybe there was a slight mistake. But 170 passengers 170 Nigerians were brought back to the country. It doesn't make sense, for Christ's sake. If you say you're going for Umrah and the agent that you consulted decided to do a tourism visa for you, it's not going to work. It's not like any other country. If you're coming for tourism, it's quite different. Probably you won't even land in Jeddah, you will land in Riyadh. If you're coming for Umrah, visa, specifically saying that you are there for Umrah. You can't claim to have one visa, or you can't have one visa and you get to Saudi Arabia and say you're going for different. It already raises a red flag about the passengers coming into that country, that what they have in their visa is not matching what they say they are in the country for. And no country will open its borders for everybody to just come in. I want the Nigerian authority to investigate this so that it wouldn't be as if Nigerians are vilifying the Saudi Arabia. And if the Saudi Arabia authority are found culpable that they just wanted to turn Nigerians back who have valid visas, I think we need to take that up diplomatically. But like I said, it has to be investigated. But from what is coming out, it shows that the agents that did the visa for them in Nigeria may have done the wrong visa for them. And that is why I said airlines need to be vigilant. You just don't put anybody on your aircraft because they have a visa. You need to ask, you need to do your diligence. You need to do the proper profiling on the people you're carrying to Jeddah or to Saudi Arabia. We need to be very careful. No country will bend its rule because it wants to please somebody. We need to follow the right channel. We need to do the right thing. And if we do the right thing, there are people who are doing the right things and they are being allowed into Jeddah, into Saudi Arabia without problem. There must have been a red flag that they saw and decided to say, no problem. We can't take this issue. Let them take them back until the right things are done. So on the diplomatic side of it, I'm so happy that the Nigerian government, through the embassy or through the High Commission in Saudi Arabia, they are actually looking into this to see how we do not ruffle diplomatic feathers. So I believe that no country will allow its borders to just be open because of so many things that are happening these days, terrorism and all the rest. So all border security have to be tightened to ensure that the right people are in the country.
As well. Now, before we continue, we also have joining us Ambassador Joe Keshi, a former diplomat in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Ambassador Keshi, for joining us. Ambassador Joe Keshi, are you there?
Yes.
Could you? Okay. Great. Thanks for joining us. I don't know if you have been following the conversation. Mr. Shadare has, extensively explained what could have gone wrong, that the 177 passengers were turned back. Now, I think I'm going to ask you, Ambassador Keshi, do you think, knowing all of these now, that there will be an impact on the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Nigeria? I mean, especially in terms of trade and economic relations and immigration between both countries?
No, there will not be, in direct response to your question. The last speaker was right. Once an investigation, look, in fact, I must thank the last speaker because he explained quite a couple of things. Number one, when you are traveling out, you either get a tourist visa, or there's another one they call the normal visa, or if you are going to Hajj, you also have visas for pilgrimage. And look, these things are very clearly stated by almost every country, depending on what you are going to do. And this is why when you arrive at your destination, at the immigration, they always ask this question: what are you here to do? If you say you're on holidays, and then they look at your visa, and your visa states you are here to study, it becomes almost automatically for you. So if they got a tourist visa instead of a visa designated them pilgrim, then you can begin to see where the problem lies, and it's not the responsibility of the federal government or just respond. How they allow this sort of mistake to be made, I really don't know. And sometimes, there was a time the Minister of Foreign Affairs used to handle this, the pilgrims, until the politicians took it away from the ministry. And I'm not too sure that you would have experienced this kind of thing because they are very diligent in dealing with situations like this. So we have to go back to the drawing board, find out what happened, what sort of visa, what kind of visa was given to those going on pilgrims. If they got a tourist visa, the service certainly would be right to become suspicious. And I also understand that if few were allowed in, maybe they got the correct visa. So it beholds on the federal government to find out exactly what went wrong. But whether it would affect diplomatic relations, whether it will affect our engagement in terms of trade and investment, no, I don't think it would.
All right, thank you so much for that. Also, back to you, Mr. Shadare. Would you say that this is as a result of individuals being exactly oblivious of, travel processes, the kinds of visa that they're supposed to get? Because if none of them could spot it out and then 177 of them got turned back, then, I mean, whose fault would we say that is?
Why not blaming the airline totally? We would have expected that the airline would have done its also due diligence, because if you're traveling, at the point of embarkation, they will look at your document, they will look at your visa, they will ask questions. What are you going there to do? We would have stopped this if we were more diligent from Lagos or Kano. We would have spotted it. Let me also give you an example. I have a friend who is a journalist. So he had an I visa. I visa is for journalists. Maybe because he was not spoiled, he thought he could beat the security check and everything. Then he traveled to see his brother with an I visa. You're not supposed to use an I visa to go and see family or friends. So when he got to the point, this embarkation point in Lagos, they asked him, where are you going to? He said he was going to see his brother in the United States, that his brother invited him. But he has an I visa, journalist visa. He was not qualified to make that journey. He was supposed to make that journey, had an event he was going to cover. And at that point, he was turned back to say, no, you are not having the app. So that embarrassment was able to nip that embarrassment in the mud. we need the embarrassment. So if they had put him on that flight and he got to Atlanta and they asked him the same question, he was going to say the same thing. I'm telling you, they will bring him back to Nigeria. So the airlines need to be very, very careful on the type of people that they just put on their aircraft. You need to know. You need to do proper profiling. If you don't do this proper profiling, they could even find the airline because you are bringing the wrong people to another person's country. So it is done in the case of drugs. And that is one of the reasons Air India left Nigeria many years ago, because they were always catching people on that flight carrying drugs, and they were made to pay heavy fines. And they decided to say, no, 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 we are not going to do this operation. So we should be more careful. And this is a very big red flag for Nigerian Airlines. Now that Airpeace is involved in all of this, we're not saying Airpeace is involved directly or Airpeace did anything, but they would have been more careful, they would have been more diligent. And it's a red flag. Once you begin to do this and you want to fly to any other country, they begin to put their eyes on you. Are we sure this airline is bringing the right people or is bringing people that should be in our country? So we need to be careful to avoid this type of embarrassment. Again, we also have dubious agents. They are not bothered about the people. They just want to collect their money. They tell them, oh, you are going for visiting, or you're going to look for a job. We can help you arrange visa that will read that you're going to Umrah. And when you do all these things, these people have the equipment to dictate some of these lies. So when you now get to Jeddah or you get to Riyadh, they begin to face this type of embarrassment, and we now leave the government to begin to wade into matters that should have been nipped in the bud. So it's quite embarrassing, if I may say.
All right, Mr. Shadare, thank you so much for that. Now, Ambassador Keshi, in light of this recent development, a lot of people, especially Nigerians, are now calling for countries to streamline the visa application processes, for travelers. Do you think this is necessary, putting into consideration all of these things that you and Mr. Shadare have said, speaking of security, speaking of being careful not to bring in the wrong persons and even those who are smuggling in things? Do you think there is a need for streamlining in this situation?
Well, I think this is an isolated case to start with. And we need to identify where to lay the blame. I strongly believe that the agent, but the thing is, how did the agent get that business? It must have come from maybe I'm not too sure, but maybe from the Pilgrims Commission. So it is now the business of the commission to find out who got the contract to get these agents, or who did they give the contract to, so as to ensure, that the pilgrims, had an easy entrance into Saudi Arabia. Look, like we said, there are various types of visas. And people must know what they are applying for. Visa to cover events, but now want to use it to visit family. That is not allowed. And I said it earlier on that when you get to that post, you'll be asked, what are you here for? And if they look at your visa, it does not conform with what you are here to do, you will not be allowed in. In this case, I really do not think that the airline should honestly be blamed. Because all the airlines do at the end of the day is that their own responsibility is to ensure that there's a visa indicating that you can get into Saudi Arabia. It's not their business whether it's for tourism, whether it's for pilgrims, whether it's for business, whether it's for visiting family members. The people who apply should have known what they were going for. So if an agent decided to apply for holidays for you, and you decided to use it for visa or tourism, and tourism, and you decided to use it for pilgrimage, then that agent and those who gave the agent the business are responsible for this embarrassment. And I think that they should be fished out, and probably, dealt with appropriately. Look, this is a big embarrassment. It just shows you again, and we have repeatedly said this again, how our institutions are not diligent enough to prevent or to save the country from continuous embarrassment. So, and until we begin to understand that people must pay a price, no matter how simple or difficult it is, for embarrassing the country or for doing the wrong thing that has caused us embarrassment. So there's a need for proper investigation in the first instance. And I make the point I made earlier on. You know, the Minister of Foreign Affairs used to handle all matters relating to pilgrims until the politicians came and took it away. And there's been a lot of problems since then. So we need to reconsider whether to send it back to those who already have who have acquired the experience. They know the terrains, they know the rules and the regulations, and they can provide the advice and leadership to ensure that we don't go through this embarrassment again.
All right. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Mr. Wole Shadare, Aviation Editor, New Telegraph newspaper, Lagos, Nigeria. And of course, thank you as well to Ambassador Joe Keshi, former diplomat, also in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you both for making this an insightful segment on the show. Thank you once again. All right, it's still Village Square Africa. When we come back, we'll take a look at what's happening in Liberia, the close, neat runoff elections, and what people in Liberia do think about the contestants. Do stay with us.